The early October wind cut through the narrow lanes of Emmerdale village, rattling the leaves that clung stubbornly to the gnarled trees. The sun dipped low, spilling an orange glow over the rooftops, but in the alleyways and hidden corners, shadows lengthened like tendrils of unease. Dylan Penders moved quietly, his steps deliberate, heart hammering not just from fear, but from the dangerous thrill of rebellion. For months, Ray Walters had held him and April Windsor under a suffocating grip, pretending that a fictitious debt bound them to his whims. But tonight, Dylan had a plan. A dangerous one. He slipped a hand into his jacket pocket, feeling the cool weight of the keys he had borrowed from Vinny. He knew the risks. Ray was not just a man of intimidation, he was meticulous, cunning, and capable of cruelty that Dylan had only glimpsed in flashes. Yet for the first time, he felt courage sharpen itself into resolve. This was no longer about debts or survival, it was about April. Her safety. Her freedom. And the impossible hope that they could escape together. Across the village, April walked with her head down, forcing herself to appear calm, though her hands trembled slightly. Every interaction with Ray was a test of nerve, a reminder of how fragile their lives had become. When she had been dragged to that hotel for a client, the fear had nearly suffocated her, leaving a residue of panic she could not shake. And now, despite her efforts to keep her terror hidden, Dylan sensed the storm behind her eyes. The night air was thick with tension as Dylan approached the rendezvous point. He had arranged a handover with Ray in a crowded public space, something Ray would never normally tolerate. His heart beat so loud it threatened to betray him, but he kept his steps steady, careful to avoid drawing attention. Ray, of course, had arrived early, his sharp gaze scanning the crowd as if he could sense every movement. Dylan handed over the package, a small, nondescript bag, and Ray's lips curled into a cold smile. "You're getting bolder," he said, voice low but venomous. "But don't think this changes anything." His eyes flicked briefly to the shadows, as if expecting unseen eyes. That instinct proved accurate. D.S. Carter, visiting the village on a seemingly unrelated case, had spotted Ray's movements and now followed at a discreet distance. Curiosity piqued. Ray, undeterred, struck up a casual conversation with Carter, his composure flawless. Yet in the brief interaction, the game shifted. He was forced to stash the bag behind a crumbling brick wall, knowing that it could not remain in plain sight. Dylan waited nearby, anxious but resolute, unaware that the first domino of chaos had already fallen. When Ray turned back, the bag was gone. Panic flashed across his face, quickly masked by fury. Ross, helping Vinny and Lewis with a move, had inadvertently claimed it, whisking it away to Dale View. Ray's rage simmered beneath the surface as he barked orders at Dylan, "Retrieve the bag, whatever it takes." But Dylan's attempts failed spectacularly. Ross caught him red-handed, and even Vinny refused to grant entry. The situation grew increasingly perilous. Meanwhile, April remained trapped in a web of fear. Ray had scheduled her next encounter with a client to repeat of the horrifying experience she had narrowly escaped. The anxiety in her chest tightened like a vice. She tried to appear composed for Dylan's sake, but her eyes betrayed her. When he pressed her directly, asking if she was okay, she brushed him off, hiding the depth of her dread. Dylan's mind raced. With no other options, he executed a desperate plan. Feigning interest in buying flowers, he stole Vinny's keys and sneaked inside. But the bag was gone. What had been their leverage, their potential escape, vanished. Returning to Ray meant confrontation. Yet Dylan made a choice, a bold, shocking choice. Dylan had found the bag before Ray could retrieve it, and inside lay the stash of cash, their ticket out. He decided, in a heartbeat, to keep it. Not just for survival, but for freedom. He imagined the look on April's face when they fled together, the exhilaration of life beyond Ray's control. It seemed perfect, almost cinematic, the young lovers against the dark forces of Emmerdale, racing toward the promise of a new beginning. But freedom, Dylan quickly realized, had a price. A message arrived. Ray had anticipated betrayal. On a small, flickering screen, April and Dylan watched Ray's chilling warning. Their dream of escape was an illusion, and Ray's reach was far longer than they had imagined. The trap was set, and they had already stepped into it. Elsewhere in the village, subtle threads of awareness began to emerge. Kane noticed unusual behavior in Dylan and Ray, sensing that the newcomers were not what they seemed. April's family, the Dingles, oblivious to the full scope of danger, would soon be pulled into a storm that threatened to upend their lives. The tension built like a bowstring drawn tight. The moment of rupture was imminent, and every character stood on the precipice of revelation, betrayal, or tragedy. Dylan and April returned to the small, dimly lit flat they had been hiding in, the stolen bag of cash tucked beneath Dylan's jacket. For a moment, the world outside seemed to vanish. The streetlights cast eerie shadows across the walls, elongating the outlines of their tense faces. Dylan's hands shook not from fear alone, but from the adrenaline of having finally taken control, even if only for a moment. April sank onto the worn sofa, clutching her knees. "Dylan. What if he comes after us? Her voice quivered, betraying the calm she had tried to project. Dylan sat beside her, his jaw tight, eyes scanning every corner of the room. Then we run faster than he can catch us, he said, forcing a confidence he didn't entirely feel. But the truth gnawed at both of them. For months, they had been pawns in Ray's cruel game, and now that they held the leverage, the stakes were higher than ever. The cash was not just money, it was a symbol of rebellion, of hope, of freedom. Yet with each passing second, Dylan realized that freedom came with a shadow. Ray's intelligence and ruthlessness were formidable, he would not allow them to escape without retaliation. Meanwhile, Ray paced his sleek, dimly lit office, the flickering screen of his laptop illuminating his sharp features. His jaw clenched as he replayed the video footage Dylan had unwittingly left behind during the handover. The loss of the bag was not merely inconvenient, it was an affront to his control, a crack in the facade he had meticulously maintained. Celia Daniels, his mother and confidant, watched silently from the doorway, her expression unreadable. "You underestimated him," she said calmly. "He's not just a boy. He's resourceful, and now he has what he needs to disappear." Ray slammed his hand against the desk. "Then we remind him exactly who holds the power." His eyes glinted with cold determination. He began planning, moving like a predator through his network, pulling strings to ensure that Dylan and April would soon understand the true cost of defiance. Unaware of Ray's plotting, Dylan decided to hide the bag in a safe place. He knew Daleview was risky, but desperate improvisation guided his hands. He crept through the dimly lit quarters, key in hand, trying to avoid the notice of Ross, Vinny, and Lewis, who were preoccupied with their own move. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a gunshot in Dylan's ears. When he finally reached an empty room, he placed the bag carefully under a loose floorboard. Relief surged through him, fleeting and fragile. April watched, her eyes wide with anxiety. "Do you think he'll find us?" she whispered. Dylan swallowed hard. "Not if we're smart," he replied, trying to convince her more than himself. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. From the shadows outside, a pair of eyes watched their every move. D.S. Carter. She had been tailing Ray earlier, suspicious of his movements, and now, coincidentally, found herself at Daleview at the very moment Dylan stashed the bag. Her instincts screamed that something illicit was unfolding, but she had no proof. Yet. Back in their flat, Dylan and April tried to talk, to plan. But fear and mistrust festered like a hidden wound. Dylan had taken the bag without telling April, and though his intentions were to protect her, the secrecy planted a seed of doubt. April noticed the tension, her sharp eyes catching Dylan's evasions. "You're hiding something," she said quietly, almost accusingly. I just wanted to make sure we could leave," Dylan admitted. His voice cracked slightly, revealing the strain of their ordeal. April's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, the two sat in silence, the weight of their desperation pressing down on them. Outside, the wind howled, as if echoing the chaos that was about to descend on them. Suddenly, Dylan's phone buzzed. A video message appeared, and both of them froze. Ray's cold, menacing face filled the screen. "You think you're free?" he said, his tone icy and commanding. "You're not even close. You belong to me, and I always know where you are. Enjoy your little fantasy while it lasts." April gasped, a trembling hand covering her mouth. "He knows everything," she whispered. Dylan's mind raced. Every plan he had made, every step they had taken, it was already anticipated. Their illusion of control was shattered. And yet, even in that moment of terror, Dylan felt something stir inside him, a reckless defiance, a determination to fight, to protect April, and to reclaim their lives from the man who had held them captive. Dylan paced the small flat, the stolen cash lying in a hastily packed bag at his feet. Every minute wasted brought Ray closer. Every shadow outside the window seemed alive with the threat of discovery. He turned to April, whose pale face reflected both fear and frustration. "We can't stay here," he said, voice low but urgent. "We need to leave tonight." April shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "And go where? He has people everywhere, Dylan. We can't outrun him forever." Her words hit Dylan like a physical blow, but they also sparked a dangerous clarity. They didn't need to outrun him, they needed a plan that made him hesitate, that made him overreach. The two huddled over a map of the village, whispering strategies. Each option felt like a gamble with lethal stakes. Dylan's eyes flicked to the bag of cash. This was their lifeline, their only leverage, but it also painted a target on their backs. Meanwhile, Ray stormed through the dimly lit corridors of his safe house, Celia at his heels. His calm, measured demeanor had dissolved into barely contained rage. "He thinks he can outsmart me," Ray muttered under his breath, voice icy with venom. "He thinks he's free. He will learn what freedom really costs." Celia's expression remained unreadable, but there was a glint in her eye, a mixture of pride and caution. "We have eyes everywhere," she reminded him. "Dylan may have taken the bag, But he can't hide forever. And April. She's fragile. Exploit that. Ray's mind raced. Every contact, every surveillance camera, every informant was activated. By morning, Dylan and April would either be back under his control or they would pay a price he would personally ensure they never forgot. Back at Daleview, Dylan and April made their move. Dylan had arranged a seemingly innocent distraction, a delivery from a local shop, timed to coincide with Ross and Vinny's temporary absence. The tension was palpable. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of paper, made April flinch. As Dylan slipped the bag from its hiding place, a shadow moved across the corridor. D.S. Carter's sharp eyes caught the motion. She paused, noticing the irregularity, suspicion blooming. Dylan froze, heart thundering, and for a moment, it seemed that discovery was inevitable. But luck, or perhaps desperation, favored him. Dylan pressed himself against the wall, bag clutched tight, and Carter passed without a glance. Relief surged through him, but it was fleeting. The danger had not passed, it had only shifted. Once safely back at the flat, April confronted Dylan. "You didn't tell me you had the bag," she exclaimed, voice trembling between anger and fear. Dylan held her hands, trying to calm her. "I had to. If I told you, Ray would have stopped us before we even had a chance. Ray would have stopped us before we even had a chance." April's eyes softened, but the tension lingered. "And if he finds us anyway?" she whispered. Dylan swallowed, a bitter taste in his mouth. "Then we fight. Together. Then we fight. Together." For a moment, they allowed themselves a small glimmer of hope, a fleeting belief that maybe, just maybe, they could outsmart Ray. But in the shadows beyond the window, a figure watched silently, phone in hand, recording their every word. Phone in hand, recording their every word. Dylan and April finally allowed themselves a moment of reprieve, thinking they had outmaneuvered Ray. But the relief was brutally short-lived. Their phones pinged simultaneously a video message from Ray. The camera revealed a chilling sight, a recording of their flat, their faces caught in a vulnerable moment. Ray's voice echoed coldly. Caught in a vulnerable moment. Ray's voice echoed coldly. "You can run, you can hide, but you cannot escape me. The bag may be yours now, but every step you take leads you closer to the trap you cannot see. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts." April clutched Dylan's arm, her nails digging into his skin. "He's everywhere," she whispered. Dylan's jaw tightened. Rage and fear mixed in his chest. "Then we make our move. Tonight," he said, eyes blazing. "No more running. No more hiding. No more running. No more hiding." Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it a sense of inevitability. Every shadow, every corner, every face in Emmerdale was a potential threat. And as the camera panned out, the viewers were left with a single, terrifying question: could Dylan and April truly escape, or was Ray's grip on their lives absolute? Truly escape, or was Ray's grip on their lives absolute? The village was cloaked in darkness, a thin mist curling around the lampposts and creeping through the empty streets. Dylan moved with precision, every step calculated, bag of cash slung securely over his shoulder. April followed close behind, her breath shallow, heart pounding as if it might betray her at any moment. Tonight, they either reclaimed their lives or lost everything. Tonight, they either reclaimed their lives or lost everything. They reached the edge of Daleview, but the shadows were restless. A figure loomed near the street corner, too still to be accidental. Dylan froze, signaling April to duck behind a parked car. Ray. His silhouette was barely visible in the mist, but his presence radiated menace. A phone in his hand reflected a faint glow. He had been tracking them all along. His hand reflected a faint glow. He had been tracking them all along. Dylan swallowed hard, his mind racing. "We have to split up," he whispered. "I'll draw him away, get you out." April's eyes widened in terror. "No. I'm not leaving you." Dylan shook his head firmly. "It's the only way." His head firmly. "It's the only way." Dylan stepped out from the shadows, facing Ray. "It's over," he said, voice steady but cold. "We're leaving, and you can't stop us." Ray chuckled, a low, chilling sound that seemed to make the mist itself shiver. "You think money and bravado can undo months of control?" His eyes glinted with danger. "Freedom is an illusion, Dylan. And illusions can be shattered." Freedom is an illusion, Dylan. And illusions can be shattered. Ray advanced slowly, a predator savoring the moment. Dylan's fists clenched. For months, he had been the hunted, the puppet under Ray's strings. But tonight, something had changed. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for April, for their chance at a life beyond the nightmare. For April, for their chance at a life beyond the nightmare. April, hidden behind the car, gripped her keys like a weapon, ready to intervene if needed. But even she knew that brute force alone would not save them. Cunning and speed would be their allies tonight. Speed would be their allies tonight. As Dylan tried to distract Ray, a sudden noise erupted, a car horn from the nearby street. breaking the tension like a gunshot. Both men flinched. From the darkness, D.S. Carter emerged, her badge glinting faintly in the streetlight. "Ray Walters. Step away from him. Ray Walters. Step away from him." Ray's eyes narrowed, calculating. He had been anticipating interference, yet the timing of this confrontation forced him to improvise. "You're in over your heads," he hissed at both Dylan and April. In a swift motion, he retreated a few steps, reaching for his phone to initiate a contingency and untraceable signal, a hidden accomplice ready to strike. See an untraceable signal, a hidden accomplice ready to strike. Dylan realized instantly, the window for escape had shrunk to seconds. His heart raced as he grabbed April's hand. "Run," he yelled, and they sprinted into the misty streets, the bag of cash bouncing against Dylan's side. The mist obscured vision, turning familiar streets into a labyrinth. Every corner seemed alive with unseen eyes. Dylan and April dodged through alleyways, narrowly avoiding late-night pedestrians. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew. Ray's boots striking the cobblestones, orders shouted in a low, threatening tone. D.S. Carter, pursuing at a distance, kept sight of both Dylan and Ray. She recognized the danger immediately. "Stop," she shouted, but the two young fugitives had gained precious seconds. It became a tense game of cat and mouse, each movement a delicate balance between exposure and survival. At one narrow intersection, Dylan ducked into a side street, pressing April against the wall. "We need a plan," he gasped. "We can't outrun him forever." April's wide eyes reflected panic but also determination. "Then we fight smart," she whispered. "We trick him." "We trick him." As they crouched behind a dumpster, Dylan pulled out his phone, scrolling to a contact he had hoped he'd never need, an anonymous ally, a mysterious figure who could provide temporary sanctuary but at a cost. His finger hovered over the call button, knowing that once he made contact, there would be no turning back. Meanwhile, Ray, realizing Dylan and April had evaded him yet again, raised his phone to send another chilling message. His voice, calm and deadly, resonated through the mist. "Run as far as you want, but I will find you. And when I do, freedom will be the last thing on your mind." The screen faded to black, leaving viewers with a heart-pounding question: will Dylan and April survive the night? Or has Ray finally tightened the trap that has haunted them for months? The night had settled into a heavy silence over Emmerdale, broken only by the occasional distant bark of a dog or the rustle of the autumn leaves. Dylan and April crouched behind the dumpster, their breaths visible in the cold air. Dylan's hand rested on the bag of cash, his knuckles white from the grip. For a fleeting moment, the danger seemed almost surreal, a distorted haze over the village they thought they knew. April's eyes were wide with fear, but beneath it, a spark of determination glimmered. "Dylan. We can't just keep running," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We need to fight smart, not just fast." Dylan nodded slowly. "I know. But we've been cornered for so long. I never thought I'd get this far." His voice faltered as the weight of months of oppression pressed down on him. The shadows seemed to pulse around them, almost alive. Every flicker of movement could be Ray. Every sound could signal betrayal. The cash in Dylan's bag suddenly felt heavier, not just currency, but the embodiment of danger, risk, and hope entwined. Dylan's fingers hovered over his phone. He had a single contact, someone whose loyalty was uncertain but whose skill could be their salvation. He tapped the number, holding his breath as the line rang. A soft click, then a familiar, cautious voice answered. "Dylan? I wasn't expecting this. Are you in trouble?" "Yes," Dylan whispered. "We need a place to hide, fast. He's hunting us. We can't stay another minute." The voice hesitated, then said, "Meet me at the old barn on Mill Lane. Be careful. And don't let anyone follow you." Dylan relayed the message to April. Her eyes widened. "Do you trust this person?" she asked, voice barely audible. Dylan shook his head. "I don't know. But we don't have a choice." As they moved through the fog-laden streets, each step was a gamble. Dylan led, April following, shadows twisting around them like living predators. Every street corner brought the echo of Ray's threat, every flicker of light hinted at discovery. Yet, unbeknownst to them, Ray had eyes everywhere. He had anticipated their moves, his network ready to strike at the first misstep. A sudden noise, a creak from a back gate, made April freeze. Dylan grabbed her hand, pulling her into the shadows. From the corner of the mist, a figure stepped forward, DS Carter, badge in hand. "Stop right there," she commanded, her voice cutting through the night. Dylan's heart sank. Any interaction could blow their cover, yet the presence of the detective also introduced an unexpected variable in their favor. Ray's image flickered briefly in their minds, a predator always calculating, always 2 steps ahead. But for the first time, Dylan felt something shift within him, courage hardening into resolve. He would no longer be just a pawn. Reaching the outskirts of the village, Dylan and April arrived at the old barn. The creaking wooden door opened slowly, revealing a dimly lit interior. Shadows shifted inside, and a figure emerged masked in the gloom, but their presence exuded authority. "You made it," the figure said. "But you're not safe yet. Ray knows you're moving. He will come." Dylan's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "How?" The figure raised a hand. "There are people within Emmerdale who work for him. Even people you trust. No one is safe. You must stay alert, or you'll be caught before sunrise. April gasped. "People? We know?" The figure nodded. "Even those closest to you. And there's more. Dylan, your past isn't as hidden as you think. Some truths will come out soon, and they will change everything. As Dylan and April settled in the barn, the tension in the air was almost tangible. Outside, the wind howled, rustling the roof in a haunting rhythm. They knew that Ray's reach was long, that the night was far from over. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant footstep, threatened to expose them. Yet within their barn, a fragile spark of hope lingered. Dylan clutched the bag, whispering to April, "We fight smart. We survive. We make it through this. Together." April nodded, determination replacing some of her terror. From the shadows, the figure watching them added one last warning: trust no one. And remember, freedom has a price. Outside, unseen, Ray watched the barn from a distance, a predator in his element. His eyes glinted in the darkness, and he spoke softly to himself, "Run all you want. Tonight, you'll learn the true cost of defiance." The screen fades to black, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats. Will Dylan and April survive the night? Who can they truly trust? And how far will Ray go to reclaim control? The night had grown colder, the mist swirling thickly around the barn like a living veil. Dylan and April crouched in the shadows, the stolen bag of cash between them, hearts hammering as if echoing the chaos outside. Every sound: rustling leaves, distant footsteps sent a jolt of panic through their veins. Suddenly, the door creaked. They froze. A figure stepped into the dim light, not the mysterious ally, but Ray. His eyes glimmered with the calculated calm of a predator who had set the stage perfectly. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" he whispered, each word dripping with menace. Dylan stepped forward, fists clenched. "This ends tonight, Ray. We're done being your puppets." Ray's lips curled into a sinister smile. "Oh, Dylan. Freedom isn't given. It's taken. And sometimes, it's stolen at a price you can't pay." Ray advanced, his presence radiating danger. April grabbed Dylan's arm. "We need a plan. We can't fight him directly." Dylan nodded, eyes darting around the barn. The shadows offered cover, but the tension was suffocating. Every second counted. Ray lunged suddenly, forcing Dylan to dodge. A scuffle erupted, the sound of bodies colliding with crates and loose boards echoing through the barn. April tried to grab the bag of cash, but Ray's swift movement blocked her path. The fear in her chest surged, mixing with a strange, defiant determination. "Dylan," she shouted. "We can't let him take it." Dylan's eyes met hers, and in that instant, an unspoken plan formed. They would not simply run, they would outsmart him. Dylan grabbed a loose plank from the floor, swinging it to distract Ray. The man stumbled, giving April just enough time to snatch the bag. They bolted toward a side exit, crashing through the heavy barn doors into the misty night. Ray recovered quickly, his anger exploding. "Stop them!" he roared, but the mist swallowed the fleeing pair. Outside, DS Carter appeared suddenly, catching Ray's attention. "Step away," she shouted, badge in hand. Ray's glare pierced her, calculating and dangerous. He had underestimated her presence, and it bought Dylan and April crucial seconds. The young couple ran blindly, adrenaline and fear fueling their flight. Every alley, every street, became a gauntlet of uncertainty, the distant echo of Ray's pursuit a constant reminder of the peril that shadowed them. For a brief moment, they ducked into an abandoned shed to catch their breath. April's hands shook as she clutched the bag of cash. "Dylan. We might not make it," she whispered, voice trembling. Dylan shook his head, determination hardening his features. "We will. We have to. We've come too far to fail now. We have to. We've come too far to fail now." Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world outside ceased to exist. Fear, anger, and love collided in an intense, almost suffocating mix. It was no longer about money, it was about survival, defiance, and reclaiming a life stolen from them. But the shadows outside moved. Ray's presence loomed over the village like a storm ready to break. And he wasn't alone. Celia's subtle influence had ensured that he always had someone watching, someone ready to act at his command. Dylan and April burst from the shed, sprinting toward the old bridge at the edge of the village. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder, more menacing. Suddenly, a hand reached from the shadows, grabbing Dylan's shoulder, spinning him around. It was not Ray, but a masked figure, someone unexpected, whose allegiance was unclear. Dylan struggled, April screamed, and the bag of cash tumbled to the ground. The camera pans to Ray standing at a distance, his eyes cold and calculating. He raises his phone slowly, recording. "Run if you dare," he whispers into the mist. "But every escape has a price." The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with an impossible question. The old bridge loomed ahead, its wooden planks creaking under the weight of the night and their desperation. Dylan's lungs burned, and April's grip tightened on his arm as the mist swirled around them. The world seemed suspended in silence, each second stretching unbearably long. From the shadows, Ray emerged, his presence magnetic and terrifying. "You can't hide, Dylan," he said, voice low, dangerous, yet eerily calm. "You think running will save you? You've only led me closer." His eyes glinted in the fog, filled with a predator's satisfaction. Dylan stepped in front of April, the bag of cash pressed against his chest. "We're done being your puppets," he said, voice steady but trembling with adrenaline. "This ends tonight." Ray laughed softly, the sound cutting through the mist like a knife. "Oh, Dylan. It only begins tonight. Freedom is a fantasy, and I will remind you how fragile it is. Suddenly, a masked figure stepped from the shadows, blocking Dylan's path. The figure's identity remained obscured, leaving both Dylan and April uncertain, ally or enemy. The tension spiked as Dylan froze, calculating his next move. Ray's eyes sparkled with sinister delight. "Did you think you could choose who you trust? Every move has been tracked. Every step anticipated. And now..." He raised his phone, recording their reaction. "Now the consequences unfold. April's breath caught. "Dylan. What do we do?" she whispered, panic mingling with defiance. Dylan's jaw tightened. He could see the faint glint of steel in the masked figure's hand, a trap, a warning, or an unexpected aid. Every instinct screamed caution, every heartbeat drummed danger. Time seemed to stretch. Mist curled around their feet, the bridge creaked ominously, and the distant sounds of Emmerdale village were swallowed by the tension. Ray's calm, unrelenting menace dominated the night. Dylan shifted, placing himself protectively in front of April. "We fight smart, not just fast," he whispered. April nodded, her fear transforming into determination. For the first time, she felt that spark of courage, a readiness to reclaim agency in a world that had tried to terrify her into submission. The masked figure made a move, and Dylan instinctively reacted, lunging to shield April. In a blur of motion, the bag of cash tumbled to the ground. Ray's expression remained unreadable, his patience like a predator savoring the hunt. As Dylan and April scrambled to recover the bag, the masked figure vanished into the mist as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving them unsure whether they had gained an ally or fallen into a trap. Ray's eyes followed them, unblinking, calculating. "You can run," he said, voice carrying across the misty bridge. "You can hide. But remember, I always find my prey." The camera pulled back, the bridge silhouetted against the moonlit sky. Mist swirled around the fleeing pair as Ray stood like a shadowed sentinel. Their future hung by a thread, danger surrounding every step. The screen faded to black, leaving viewers with a single, haunting question.